I qualified as a medical practitioner in 1975, and my earlier training was in Bihar and then in New Delhi. Then I came across here in 1977 as a postgraduate trainee doing surgical work at the time. And that's how I came to Hull. But whilst I was in Hull, it was also interesting to note that there was just about that time, there were a local group of British doctors who were just trying to get a team formed. And whilst they were doing that, somehow through my curriculum vitae that they'd looked at, they thought that there was a reasonable chap who could play a bit of cricket. And that's how I got inducted into what we call the Remnants cricket team. And we started to play, and I played for 18 years for the Remnants cricket team. And it was recognized at the time that we were the only side. We didn't have a field, but we played at least 18 to 19 matches per season. And we used to go around Yorkshire, the entire region, East and West Yorkshire, playing cricket, and particularly village cricket. And, my wife and the kids were small. They used to come along with us and have a great Sunday afternoon. I was trained when I went to a boarding school in Bihar called St. Xavier's, Hazaribagh, and it was run by Australian Jesuits, and there were some very interesting cricketers. One of them had played for New Zealand, Queensland, as a wicketkeeper and opening batsman, a chap called Tom Keogh. I think he must have seen some potential in me, and that's how he started to train me as a keeper and a batsman. So I went on to play for Bihar Schools and captained Bihar Schools, which is the county schools, in 1967. And then, of course, I joined medicine, having done medicine in Patna, which is in Bihar again. I captained the Patna University cricket team, and when I was the third year, you could only play for 3 years at the time for any university. So the third year, I was spotted by the combined universities of East Zone, and they invited me to play for the combined universities of East Zone, and then I was made a vice captain as well as a wicketkeeper batsman. And when I was playing that, I was asked to play for the Ranji Trophy team, which is the county equivalent of the county team over here, which I did for 2 seasons. I didn't play many matches for the Ranji team because being a doctor, being a medical student final year at the time, obviously time was limited. And of course, if I had a choice, I would have played cricket, but my father said, no, you be a doctor. So that's what I did. But interestingly, when I was playing for the combined universities of East Zone, what was called the Visi Trophy, the 4 zones used to have a grand finale, and this was held in Pune in Western India. And at the time, the cricketers that I played against for the West Zone, Sunil Gavaskar should have played, but he was on India duties. But we had the likes of Karsan Ghavri, Ashok Mankad. For West Zone, we had Brajesh Patel for South Zone, and Bharat Reddy for East Zone, along with 1 or 2 other very prominent cricketers from South Zone. But there was also from the North Zone, Mohinder Amarnath and Praveen Oberoi, who again, of course, Mohinder went on to play for India, and one of the most stoic batsmen, as one would say, and particularly against the fast bowlers. Ranji, as I said, I did play, but very few matches, and it was limited because of my medical career. I was a wicketkeeper batsman, so in my time, Farooq Engineer was one of my ideals, and of course, although I didn't meet Farooq then, but we are very close friends now, and we do often meet up every year at least, and we meet up across the world in various cricket matches, etc. And he's been to our place many times now, and he was one. And amongst my peers, I would still say that Sunil Gavaskar is probably one of the best batsmen that the world has ever seen. And Dilip Vengsarkar, a very dear friend of mine, who again captained India, and the only person who would have scored 3 centuries, successive centuries rather, at Lord's Cricket Ground, record I don't think anybody has beaten yet. I would like to say that certainly cricket did play a role, because it certainly helped me integrate very well with my seniors at the time. And I think that was that was the reason why I probably had a slight edge or an advantage over other colleagues at the time, and probably the only reason why I stayed back in Hull all those years as well. I think it's been a very humbling factor. I must say that over the years, the nation would have seen discontent, sometimes racial disharmony, but I don't think in Hull we ever felt that. And there may be a few reasons for that. One of them, it was a lower proportion of ethnic minorities. But the other reason it also could be that right from the beginning, late 70s, early 80s, we built up, all the entire Indian community over here, built up that sort of a relationship with promotional things. We had musical programs, we had, famous dancers from India, art, culture exchange, and of course cricket. If you look at it over the years, the cricketers that have come to Hull and East Yorkshire, and Yorkshire in particular, being a very sporty sort of a nation, and I think that unites us. And looking at various reasons, I think certainly cricket was one of the very unifying factors at the time. And to have the likes of Dilip Vengsarkar, W.V. Raman, and then speakers over here over the years like Sunil Gavaskar, half the Indian team in my era would have visited Hull, stayed here, enjoyed the hospitality, and they've taken back excellent memories from here. And having said that, Hull is really well footed in the Indian cricket scene. And you go to any place in India, particularly the major cricketing places, and if you ask most of the cricketers, do you know Hull? They'll say, of course we know Hull. It's the place where we played cricket, or we know somebody who lives there, and their trips to Hull have been very cordial and very hospitable. I think it's interesting that 70 years later on, the nation that was ruled by Britain and partitioned at the time have continued to maintain a relationship as they have. And I would say that particularly, I may be biased, but certainly India and England have a very strong bond. And if you look at it across the board, they have a relationship that has been strengthened not only by sports, but by business, by politicians, and I think the common ability to speak the language itself in a very amicable and a very understandable way. And I think that certainly has helped and bridged the gap between the two nations.